John Keats' best poems are his odes, and these odes explore tensions and contradictions. Keats finds melancholy in delight, pleasure in pain, excitement in both emotional and sensations. He contrasts dreams and reality, imagination and the real world, the tangible and the intangible. He celebrates beauty, but at the same time, he knows that all things of beauty must fade and die. He experiences love and death with equal intensity, knowing that they are closely connected. He shared with both Wordsworth and Coleridge the view that suffering is necessary for an understanding of the world and that great poetry grows from deep suffering and tragedy. The ode is a complex poetic form, and John Keats is generally regarded as one of the masters of odes. At the same time, he develops a poetic language appropriated both to the form of the ode and the nature of his themes. Keats' language captures the rhythm and movement of thoughts and feelings. It registers the full range of sense impressions. For example, Ode to Nightingale, oh, for a draught of vintage that has been cooled a long age in the deep delved earth, tasting of flora and the country green, dance and provincial song and sunburnt mirth. The description is an example of synesthesia. Synesthesia is a term associated with his poetry, which means two uh, senses are put together. For example, sight and touch are auditory and smell, a feature which recurs in Keats' poetry and in the poetry of others such as Wilfred Owen and Dylan Thomas in 20th century poetry. Synesthesia is use of imagery and language choices which describe sensory impressions in terms of other senses. Sensory impression definitely is already through a sense, but it is being described with relation to other senses, that is synesthesia. Keats manages to appeal to sight, color, movement, sound, and heat almost simultaneously. Draught of vintage, heat, that has been cooled a long age. The deep delved earth, tasting of flora, and the country green, sight, color, dance and provincial song, and sunburnt mirth. Example of synesthesia is movement of dancing, and the sound of song is described as a taste. Rather than describing it as you can say movement, and movement when we see it's a auditory sense, but it is presented as a taste. So blend of uh, different you can senses are described a sensory experience with respect to other senses is synesthesia. That's the great quality of John Keats' poetry. Keats also created same as we hear the same people laughing. Keats also created a rich poetic music, and example of his control of rhythmic movement and syntax is Ode to Autumn. That is also thought one of his great odes. In a wailful choir, the small notes moan among the river shallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. Here, the rise and fall in the rhythm of the line matches the flight of the notes. Keats' characteristics, representation of physical world, his total immersion in experience of things, his delight in sensuous but precise words can be exemplified from the same point. So that is his mastery, that he engages, you can say, senses to, you can say, portray the scenes. In his Ode to Autumn, the view of autumn is positive and life affirming. That is not taken as the, you can say, sign of decay and death. Keats' pursuit of the central truths of poetic art and imagination are powerfully expressed in Ode on a Grecian Urn. In the poem, the urn itself suggests that because there is an urn and on that urn there are certain images that have been engraved. And these images actually present life that is at its climax, as a lover is just to touch his love, and musicians are just to produce the song. So at that moment, you can say scene is created on the urn. And through urn, Keats speaks, beauty is truth, truth, beauty, that is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. So beauty is truth, truth, beauty means both are known for their permanence. And which beauty is permanent? Definitely that is captured on, on an urn, on in a form of any art, whether it's a painting, whether it's a song, or it's a poetry, beauty that is captured, that is universal. Otherwise, beauty, as seen in his poetry, that mortal beauty or human beauty, that is bound to die. So Grecian and the artistic carvings uh, on it represent the permanence of art and celebrate the power of the artist to immortalize the human activity. Beauty of art is seeing the real truth of existence. It also gives us occasional glimpses of solitude and desolation. In his famous letter, he calls the world the veil of soul making in his sonnet beginning. When I have fears, when I have fears that I may cease to be. That's an sonnet of famous quote, sonnet of John Keats, uh, where he actually compares, you can say, mm, eternal and temporal world, and he shares his two desires: desire of getting a fame as a poet, desire of uh, his getting a fame as a reputed poet, and enjoy the unravishing love of Fanny Brown or his beloved. But that's approaching death, that you can say uh, make these two, uh, you can say, noble emotions worthless. worthless in the eyes of a dying man. Keats died of tuberculosis at the age of 26. That is a very tragic death, with a poetic career of even greater fulfillment in front of him. He was the romantic poet par excellence. His continuing dedication to poetry in the knowledge that he was dying made him a symbol for the romantic movement. As romantic movement was a short-lived movement. बाकी जितनी भी मूवमेंट गुजरी हैं सबसे कम उम्र अगर कोई मूवमेंट थी अपने ज़माने में ही, अभी कॉलरिज का और वर्ड्सवर्थ का जिक्र हुआ है कि वो जिंदा भी रहे तो तब भी वो उस वेन में उस स्पिरिट के साथ पोइट्री नहीं कर सके. वर्ड्सवर्थ की जो लेटर पोइट्री है दैट्स अ क्वाइट फेलियर. द एक्सकर्शन इज एन एग्जांपल. एंड कॉलरिज ने वैसे ही पोइट्री को छोड़ के जो है वो किनारे कशी कर ली थी. एंड young romantics like Keats, Shelley, Byron, they couldn't live long. At the time of his death, the first generation of romantics, Wordsworth and Coleridge, could no longer write the intense poetry of their early years. He became an emblem of transience. Shelley's visionary essay Adonis on Keats' death depicts the exquisite early flowering and then sudden death of Keats, the man and poet. Adonis is a poem, an elegy written on the death of John Keats by his fellow young romantic poet P.B. Shelley. John Keats' uh, biographical aspect I have not shared, but John Keats belongs to the almost you can say lower strata of society or middle class. His father was actually uh, uh, um, his father was uh, actually linked with the trade of horses livery, and he worked as an assistant or apprentice to a surgeon. He didn't have university education. He lived too short. His family also experienced financial crisis. One of his brother died of tuberculosis, and other faced economic crisis. Contrary to that, Shelley was a university graduate. He was a university student who couldn't actually complete his degree because of his radical or atheistic view. He was born in a family of law and had a relationship with a dominant philosopher of the time, Godwin, who was his father-in-law. Mary Wollstonecraft, famous feminist author, she was his mother-in-law, and Mary Shelley was his second wife. Poetry of Shelley is similar to that of John Keats in many respects. But unlike Keats, Shelley explores political and social questions more explicitly. That's why Keats is often called a pure poet, because he does not respond to the political and social questions of the time that were addressed in the poetry of Wordsworth, Blake, Shelley, Byron. But Keats who is thought, you can say, away from those issues, and he is often called Hellenist because of his love for Hellenism or beauty of Greek. Shelley represents the more revolutionary and non-conformist elements in the English Romanticism and was critical of conventional authority. He was an individualist, he was an idealist who rebelled against the institution of family, church, marriage, and Christian faith, and against all form of tyranny. We can say that's the crux of his ideas. An individualist, an idealist who stood against the institutions of family, church, marriage, and Christian faith. Uh, he wrote a pamphlet that was about the question, that was a question upon the existence of God. Because of that writing, he was deprived of his university degree. He was socially excommunicated, much criticized by the poet Robert Southey and others when he defended the incest. Here, in his poetry, he advocated that idea, and practically he supported the marriage of Lord Byron with his stepsister. He started writing and publishing poetry while at Oxford University some 3 years before Keats' first publication. One of Shelley's major poems was Queen Mab. In Queen Mab, he attacks institutional religion and codified morality, portraying a utopian vision of man's need for simple virtue and straightforward happiness. We can say that is the ideal that recurs in his poetry. Again and again, ये idea जो उसकी शैली की poetry में आता रहता है कि individual is more important than institution. He believed that original sin did not exist and it was possible to attain human perfection on earth if humans could only free themselves from the chain of repressive society. बस इंसान को ये मुख्तलिफ किस्म की जंजीरों से, जकड़बंदियों से आज़ाद कर दिया जाए तो इंसान जो है वो परफेक्ट हैप्पीनेस हासिल कर सकता है इस दुनिया में होते हुए भी. एंड देयर इज नो आइडिया ऑफ फॉल एंड कर्स जो कि रिलीजन ने हमें जो है वो टीच किया. His other poems also address social and political issues like The Mask of Anarchy was direct response to the Peterloo massacre of 1819. In the introduction of Romantic Age, I mentioned that event that was a massacre and you can say ruthless display of tyranny, which was addressed in The Mask of Anarchy by P.B. Shelley. Like the sonnet England in 1819, it closes with a vision of future revolution of working classes. Like Wordsworth, Coleridge, Shelley was supporter of French Revolution, but unlike these two poets, he never gave up the support for revolution. He thought idea of revolution must be endorsed. His poetic drama, Prometheus Unbound, generally regarded as one of Shelley's most successful love poems, implies the Greek myth of Prometheus, who was punished for stealing the gift of fire from the gods and giving it to mankind. But in Shelley's poem, he is redeemed by the power of love and acts as a symbol of human fulfillment, resulting from a change in the imaginative vision. तो प्रोमीथियस को एक आग चुराने वाले चोर से हटा के शैली जो है उसे एक इंसानियत के मसीहा के तौर पर, एक जो है इंसानियत से मोहब्बत करने वाले गाइड के तौर पर जो है वो पेश करता है. Prometheus represents archetypal humanity, and in the ancient mariner, an apocalyptic change in his life reveals limitless possibilities. Shelley's poem Julian and Madalo is a central text of English Romanticism. It is described as conversation, and its couplets reflect a chatty and intimate tone, meaning the qualities of poetry which were advocated by Wordsworth, they can be seen in Giuliano and Medallo by P.B. Shelley. His sonnet Ozymandias is an evocation of a wasteland, both literally and metaphorically. And we are quite aware of that sonnet as well, in which a traveler finds a broken statue of King Ozymandias that was half sunk in sand in Egypt. And it was written on pedestal of that statue, Ozymandias, the kings, and it mocks power, it mocks tyranny, and it also shows the power of art, and theme is death levels all. Shelley also wrote many intense short lyrics which draw direct inspiration from nature and are written in controlled, sparse language. For example, a widow bird sat mourning of her love upon a wintry bough. The frozen wind crept on above, the freezing stream below. There was no leaf upon the forest bare, no flower upon the ground, and little motion in the air except the mill wheel sound. That's you can see the typical romantic craving in expanding mechanical or industrial world. Here the images from nature are employed to express inner feeling and states of mind. Like John Keats, Shelley's best poems are also his odes: Ode to the West Wind, Ode to Skylark, uh, Hymn to an Intellectual Beauty. Shelley has often been criticized for putting his own feelings too directly at the center of his poems and for being too self-indulgent and self-pitying. For example, in Ode to West Wind, he says, "Oh, lift me as a wave, a leaf, a cloud, I fall upon the thorns of life I bleed." So, being too self-indulgent, बहुत ज़्यादा जो है वो अपने आप को उसमें शामिल कर लेना उस एक्सपीरियंस में, that shows immaturity of the poet, and that is seen in his poems. In his ode written in dejection, I could lie down like a tired child and weep away the life of care which I have borne yet must bear. Skylark is a favorite bird, as Keats loves nightingale and Wordsworth loves cuckoo. His masterpiece is Ode to the West Wind, and there are lines from that ode. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from enchanted fleeting. And the poem concludes with the famous line, O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Uh, Besides his poetic wonders, Shelley was an activist and he was also a critic. He wrote, you can say, essay, and his one of his essays, A Defense of Poetry. Shelley wrote a poetic manifesto for these beliefs, making the poet a missionary, a prophet, a potential leader for a new society. He calls the poets legislator of mankind in this essay. इस essay की famous quotation है, the poets are legislators of mankind. View of the creative artist as hero was later embraced by other writers in Victorian and modern period, but Shelley was the earlier voice for that purpose. Next poet is Lord Byron. Byron actually is not included in university syllabus, but he is admired as a poet who was a character in his life as well. He wrote Don Juan. He wrote Childe Harold. Like Shelley, Byron was heavily involved with contemporary social issues and became particularly well known for his verse satires. The long poem Childe Harold's Pilgrimage is thought his masterpiece. The term child is a medieval word for a young nobleman. It does not have the sense of child, bache wala. Young nobleman waiting to become a knight. The hero Childe Harold is often identified with Byron himself. He is a restless wanderer, alternating between despair and great energy and commitment to live. Usually forbidden experience. जो चीजें मना की जाती थी उनको करने की ख्वाहिश रखने वाला इंसान था. When he wrote that Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, he was only 24 at that time. It made him famous overnight, and his public career as a popular and scandalous figure was launched. Robert Southey was the much ardent critic of Byron's poetry. Uh, uh, it was thought, you can say, spoiling the youth. Byronic hero comes in his dramatic poem Manfred. Manfred is a passionate outcast and rebel whose typically romantic heroism contrasts with the restraint and humility of Augustan age. Byron, in his life and in his work, both he was a passionate man. Um, he tried to write, you can say, uh, a a poetry of and uh, energy and revolt. Byron's semi-biographical poem is the Don Juan. Tone of this poem is light-hearted and comic throughout, even when the subject matter is at its most serious. Byron also likes to play with his reader by following amusing and sometimes trivial digressions. Robert Southey was one of the most prolific of all writers of Romantic period. a great friend of Coleridge. They collaborated while at Oxford University and shared many idealistic enthusiasms. His poems contain some famous ballads such as the Inch Cape Rock and echo the aim of the lyrical ballad. Although he became poet laureate and remained one of the lake poets, uh, besides Wordsworth, Sodhi devoted his later career more to history and biography than to poetry. He attacked Byron in preface to A Vision of Judgment, and as a result, Byron wrote a parody called The Vision of Judgment a year later. A Vision of Judgment, uh, preface to A Vision of Judgment was written by Sodhi, and The Vision of Judgment by Byron.